You're listening to the Useless Aggression Podcast, bringing you all the wrestling news and views you need, as well as some you don't. And now to your hosts, coming to you live from across the pond in England. It's James, it's Henry, it's time for Useless Aggression.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Useless Aggression Podcast. I am one of your hosts and the reigning, defending, undisputed podcast champion, and more importantly, the podcast tribal chief.
Oh, God.
James.
Well, you know,
and joining me is Henry.
It's time for me to drop my first ever single of hey, ho, the podcast champion needs to go. Because it's a dark days for the podcast now. Obviously, James has won however many in a row. I think, no, that's not true. I won one not that long ago, but James has won every single wild card ever.
I've won every wild card ever.
The crowd are getting worse than that time when Jinder Mahal was champion, and it looks like we could be genuinely going. This is the level. People's level for excitement for the podcast at the moment, because of James being champion, is equal to that time when we all genuinely thought we might have had Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series that one time. Like people at this level, they're like, I've been obviously clearly tweeting people on the side, no one knows, on the sly, they've all been like, James is just the worst, and you've got to oust him. So I'm going to do my best for the good of the podcast.
Do you know what? So tonight, as of the day of recording, is the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. We're very excited because our clocks changed last night, which means it starts earlier for us, which is great. I might actually, beforehand, I didn't realise this coincided on the same weekend because I have work at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. I wasn't going to stay up and watch it. Now I might. I'm definitely going to start it. And then once I always say, I'll start watching it. And when I get tired, I'll then go to bed and turn it off. Every time I've done that, I've never... I get into the wrestling, so I never then get tired and turn it off. So most likely means I'm going to watch the whole thing. But I want to add a little bit of extra spice to this one, Henry, because there's only 5 matches, so it's not very exciting in terms of predictions.
Only 5. Yeah, this means there's
only
no lock-in
5
either.
There's no lock-in.
Yeah.
We'll try and add, if they add matches as and when, we'll quickly tweet our extra predictions and whatnot. But to make it a little bit more interesting, Henry, if I retain the championship at Hell in a Cell, in our recap episode, I would like you to refer to me as the tribal chief.
There's no way. Like, I'm literally not. Like, even for the sake of hilarity, I just got weirded out by that in the last pay-per-view. Like, after a while, I was like, this is just weird. And do you know what I reckon? I genuinely reckon they should totally have done in this match. I think it's a suggestion. They should have totally done, instead of an I quit match, he doesn't have to say I quit, but he has to say you're the tribal chief. That's what they should have done.
I think they might do that in the sense that, because it is obviously, it's I quit, but if Jey Uso loses, the Usos then both have to take orders from Reigns and acknowledge him as the tribal chief or the head of the table. So I feel like that is what they're going to do. I think he will say, I quit, you are the tribal chief, or something along those lines. But I mean, that's only one of the 5 matches we get to discuss. It's a bit, I don't really know what they're going to do. They either will add more matches, which is fine, but then if, why not give them the credibility of being announced beforehand? Or maybe this is because, NXT events usually have 5 matches. They run for 2.5 hours. It's quite nice. We have moaned in the past about pay-per-views being too long. Maybe they are just going to go shorter for this one. Maybe they're going to go, do you know what? 5 matches is all we need.
I think for this one, though, which is a bit of a gripe, is I know that obviously it's going to be a weird complaint, but 3 of the matches are Hell in a Cell matches of some capacity.
Yeah, and, it's a bit too much.
I don't like... I mean, I think 2 is fine because, at least that works for, storyline. 3 is mad. Because you also, if there's any, structural thing is going to happen, nothing's going to happen in the first 2.
I mean, personally, I don't like Hell in a Cell being a pay-per-view every year anyway. I liked the Like when you had a Hell in a Cell, it was a really big deal. Like you remember back in the day, they'd be like, "Oh, this is only the 10th Hell in a Cell match and whatnot." Now we're getting 3 of them a year. We're rapidly jumping up, and as you said, like tonight's event, 5 matches, 3 of them are in Hell in a Cell. That's insane. Like 2 of them on a night where you have like 8 matches, maybe it's fine, but 3 Hell in a Cell matches out of 5 is it's just a little bit insane. But I guess that's what they're going for.
And what it bothers me is it's based on what you've said as well. Where like back in the day you'd have like it's only the X of whatever an NSL match ever. Like it used to be like a bona fide end to a grudge and a half of a feud. Like it would be like when you had like people that two like superstars that genuinely hated each other. It would be like this could only be contained in a Hell in a Cell or whatever. And don't get me wrong, like Bailey and Sasha Banks, like if this was like the 3rd or 4th outing of those two in this feud, I'd be like, this is the perfect conclusion, a Hell in a Cell match. But like it's kind of because I feel like I'm probably not alone, and I imagine you're probably the same in imagining this is definitely not going to be their first match in the next few months for the title. And for the first one to be a Hell in a Cell match just seems mad. Like for the first match between these two to be a Hell in a Cell match as a feud, it seems a bit like really.
But also, you've got Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso is an I Quit match. Obviously it's inside a Hell in a Cell, but why not just have that as an I Quit match? And then actually you could have them go anywhere. That would make it interesting, like give a little bit of variation. But um, anyway, shall we start with some predictions? So the first match that we're going to talk about is Otis is defending his Money in the Bank contract against The Miz. Henry, who have you got in this match and why?
So this one, I had to actually think about this one a little bit because I'm in sort of 2 mindsets about it. Because Otis has done absolutely nothing with the briefcase, and I still maintain that if he tries to cash it in, he's going to be unsuccessful. So this sort of, I think them having this match is a chance for them to make the briefcase switch hands and therefore make it a credible thing again. However, I also don't think looking at the current champions that the Miz will cash in anytime soon and cash in successfully. So I think if he cashes in as well, it's going to. But either way, I think this is just a dead briefcase, and whoever cashes it in is going to be unsuccessful. And I don't really see the point in them making it change hands for the sake of it to be a crap cash in anyway, if you know what I mean. So I think Otis might retain it here. I think Vince obviously likes Otis. He made a point of Otis being drafted as an individual person. So I think I'm gonna go for Otis to retain in this one. If it was Morrison, I would have possibly been like, do you know what? Morrison might win it. But as it's the Miz, I'm gonna say Otis.
So I'm also backing Otis in this one. My reasoning is, I think it was maybe a month ago, I was reading loads of stories about how supposedly all of the writers were trying to get the briefcase off Otis because they see what we all see. He's not a world champion material. He can't cash in on any of these champions and win. Even if, like tonight, you've got, say, Drew McIntyre or Orton, at the end of a Hell in a Cell match, beaten with the title. Otis cashing in would probably still lose that in my mind. But they all came up with ideas.
Can you imagine the scene?
Yeah.
Just like Drew McIntyre just like laid flat out with his belt all around the Orton MVP, and then Otis just runs down and does the fucking caterpillar in the Hell in a Cell.
But you get weird. So they've all wanted to get rid of the belt the briefcase off him. Sorry, and it's been quite an awkward time because Vince just shoots them down straight away. Like he really likes Otis. He still wants him to be the briefcase holder. So I agree with you. I don't see the point in them exchanging here for the Miz to then go and lose. But equally, I feel like this is their way of trying to make Otis relevant again and give him like a big win. Like Miz is a former world champion after all. He's won the Intercontinental Championship about 80 million times. For him to beat the Miz would be quite a good singles win for him, and then that will help him kind of become a little bit more established and maybe have people start questioning, oh, maybe Otis could cash in at some point. But yeah, I have Otis to win here and keep the briefcase.
Okay, so let me be on to your pick then of Jeff Hardy versus Elias.
For me, Elias wins this one because he's just come back, so it would be weird for him to lose straight away. Like if he's supposed to be this credible threat to Jeff Hardy, like he should win the match. He's come back as this heel. He's literally been on TV for 2 weeks. If he loses, then there's just no point ever having Elias build towards anything again ever because he'll just look so weak. Hardy can take the loss, and I should explain that. You're probably hearing my dog snoring in the background. I do apologise for that. You've got Hardy can take the loss here and won't really be damaged by it. And also, I just like Elias. I think he's a cool guy. I really enjoy him. I'm so happy he's back. So yeah, I'm on Team Elias.
Yeah, for pretty much the same reasons, I'm going to say Elias. He's obviously just come back. There's apparently a lot of rumours that he's due a big push as well. Apparently, they're quite keen to give him a big sort of, not like world championship level, but maybe like a mid card level. And also for the classic WWE trope as well of on Raw, obviously Jeff Hardy got the edge on Elias and beat him up with the guitar. And everybody knows whoever gets the advantage, on the go home episode, you're going to lose. So based on that sound tried and tested thing, I'm also going to say Elias for this one.
Do you know what? I think he should be due a push because do you remember it wasn't too long ago? Seth Rollins had, I believe, it was the Intercontinental title, and him and Elias had a match for it, and it was firstly a fantastic match. It was really good. And in it, even though Seth Rollins was the face, he had to use, like, I would say the tights, but it's the jeans for Elias. He had to like pull on those to pin him for a 3 count. And afterwards, all the commentators were like, "Oh, what an effort from Elias!" Like Seth Rollins had to cheat to beat him, basically. Like, "Oh, what a huge match for him!" And then nothing happened again. They just decided to never put Elias in another meaningful match again. So I do think he's due a push, and yeah, I think this is a good way to establish that. Especially, the only awkward thing would be on Raw, obviously, with Bobby Lashley's the US champion, and Elias has come back as a heel, so they won't feud yet, you imagine. But I could definitely see whoever takes the belt off Bobby Lashley would then ultimately drop it to Elias if everything kind of works the way it should. However, the next match we'll talk about is the only women's match on the card. It's Bayley versus Sasha Banks. Finally, it is inside a Hell in a Cell for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Supposedly, this was supposed to be the original main event, but now it's been dropped as the main event. So that's a bit unfortunate there.
I'm surprised it's not the main event, to be fair. I think it should have been, but
the only thing that says to me, though, is surely that means one of the other 2 matches, I'm going to guess the Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso, will involve breaking the cell somewhat. And maybe that's why they can't put them before the Bayley match. But who have you got and why?
So this one's really hard. This one I'm genuinely, honestly, slightly miffed by for a number of reasons. So basically, it makes this is why it's frustrating that it's a Hell in a Cell match, because the Hell in a Cell match is normally the culmination of the feud, and it's normally where the face will finally get their big win over the heel. In this case, obviously Sasha Banks winning, but I also don't think. I think this is a feud. This is going to be dragged out. I think it's going to go on for a while. And I think even though the next one is Survivor Series, and therefore nothing will happen till TLC, I do think this is a feud that will be dragged out. And also they keep playing on the fact that Bayley has never been in a Hell in a Cell match and Sasha Banks has been in 2. I think because they keep being like, oh, Bayley's inexperienced because obviously Sasha Banks has been in 2 of these matches and Bayley's never been in one. I'm going to take Bayley to retain, but this honestly could go either way. I'd love it if Sasha Banks did win, but I think Bayley will find, because of the stipulation of the match as well, with obviously no disqualification, Bayley can find some way to not necessarily cheat to win because it wouldn't be a disqualification, but she can do something like there can be like some cheeky weapon hit in there somewhere, or something like she can do something to get the advantage in this match. And I think Bayley will retain.
Interesting. Can I clarify, when you're saying Bayley to retain, you want to say Bayley to win?
Well, you can't get disqualified. It's a Hell in a Cell match.
Well, this is the thing. My prediction is very much based on the fact that I do not trust the WWE
No
at all.
contest. There's been no
I
contest.
I'm going to back to win the match Sasha Banks. However, I have no confidence that that necessarily means the title will change hand. Like, we have seen a Hell in a Cell match end by disqualification. Do you remember the Fiend versus Seth Rollins?
Yeah, I remember the feel. That was a wow. That was an end to a match.
If I was, I mean, firstly, if I was booking this, I'd have done the same thing that you've said before. I'd have separated them at the draft. I'd have had them meet at WrestleMania with Sasha Banks winning the Royal Rumble. If even then with this feud, like maybe to drag it out, maybe you'd have Bayley win the first time or whatnot, just to kind of stretch it out a little bit longer and keep the gloating going. That's how I would do this. That means the WWE aren't going to do this. I think they're going to put. I think Sasha Banks will win. I think they'll have her end Bayley's historic title reign, and as if the match finishes clear, like has a foregone conclusion. But it really wouldn't surprise me if they do some form of, I don't know, they do something to get out of this having a definite finish. But yeah, I'm at the minute I'm going to back Sasha Banks, so we have got a difference at least.
There we go. No, I think it could happen. I genuinely have. This was for me. This was almost the flip of a coin. Like, I think if Survivor Series wasn't the next event and it was just a normal event, I would have definitely been like 100% been like, oh yeah, Bayley will win. They'll have like a couple of matches over pay-per-views. But like, because obviously Survivor Series, assuming they're doing NXT versus the other two again, you're going to have what? Asuka versus who is the NXT Women's Champion? Oh yeah, Asuka versus Io Shirai versus Bayley or Sasha Banks. And like, I feel like what you could easily do in that match is if Bayley wins through some kind of shitty method, then Sasha Banks could totally take her out of that match, and then that can be them at TLC. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not too sure, but I'm going to say Bayley.
I did hear a rumor. Oh, I read a few rumors. Sorry, that said that potentially this year's Survivor Series won't be a Raw versus SmackDown deal. It will instead they'll just have their own elimination matches, kind of like how they used to do. So, because supposedly they want to maybe do something with Retribution versus the Hurt Business, or like a Team Raw versus a Retribution sort of vibe. But we'll see. That's the one upsetting thing. If NXT isn't involved, because Asuka is not going to obviously lose the belt tonight because she's not defending it, that means we're going to get again Asuka versus either Bayley or Sasha Banks, which we saw like 1,000,001 times. They were great matches, but I'm a bit bored of seeing those matches now. But anyway, the next match we're going to talk about, it's Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. This is also in a Hell in a Cell. This is for the WWE Championship. It's my pick first, I believe.
It is, indeed.
And I'm going to go Drew McIntyre to retain here because by now you would have put the belt on Orton if you were going to. I actually think they made a mistake and they should have put the belt on Orton at either of the last two times these guys fought. So, because obviously they didn't fight at Payback, did they? So there was SummerSlam and God, what was the last event?
Clash of Champions
match. Clash of Champions, that was it.
Clash of Champions, I think those, James. God, you're the podcast champion, is that?
Those were the two opportunities to put the belt on Orton. I think really after 3 matches, the feud has to finish. And if you were to have Orton win here, that means they'll probably have another match because Drew will want his rematch and all that sort of jazz. And that just doesn't work in that sense. I also feel like if you are going to have a Raw versus SmackDown at Survivor Series, you're not going to have Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton, both being heels. You're going to want Drew McIntyre in there. So I disagree with the result. I think Orton should have been the champion. I think he deserved to be the champion. I don't think Drew's done anything spectacular since being the champion. He's been all right, but he's not a great champion.
How dare you? Drew McIntyre's done a great job. Considering the circumstances, he's done such a good job.
He's still not like blown anything away though. But Randy Orton is he's been the best he's been, which says a lot because there have been times where he's been absolutely incredible, but he's reached those peaks again, and they're not going to put the title on him. So fine, I guess. But Drew to retain is my prediction.
So yeah, I'm going to also say Drew for agreeing on almost everything except you saying that he's not done a lot in the rain. He's had a great match with Seth Rollins at Extreme Rules, not Extreme Rules, sorry, at Money in the Bank. Obviously, he had his good match with Dolph Ziggler at Extreme Rules. He's had Randy Orton matches with him, really good matches.
His character
But
just
no,
annoys me. He's just,
but
yeah, I'm bored of him.
the other key thing I think that plays into making it obvious, I think that McIntyre's going to retain, is if you look at the sort of shift of people in the draft, in terms of main eventers, Raw have picked up a lot more sort of like heel main eventers like AJ Styles and people like that. So based on the fact of looking, if Randy Orton was to win, there's not a great selection of face people, with really the exception of Drew McIntyre, for him to face at the moment on Raw. Meanwhile, if Drew McIntyre, he's got Randy Orton if they want to go another one. They've got AJ Styles. They've got people like that he can feud with. So yeah, I
Braun
think
Strowman,
also
The
yeah,
Fiend,
Braun Strowman, yeah, exactly. He's got a lot more people to feud with as a face. And as you said as well with Roman Reigns, I mean, I'm pretty safe in assuming we're both going to say Roman Reigns for the next one. So yeah, Roman Reigns and him at Survivor Series. I think yeah, as you said, it makes a lot of sense. I do like Drew. I think he puts on good matches. I think he gets more. I think he puts on. He's one of those people where he puts on. He doesn't put on like game changing like match of the year matches, but you can always rely on his match to be like, yeah, I enjoyed that kind of match. Like it's never a chore to watch him wrestle in main events, apart from that Brock Lesnar one. But that was, I think, the shit booking.
I think his matches with Orton haven't really lived up to any of the hype, though.
The SummerSlam one was good. I think the other one was shackled by them trying to be like, let's chuck as many legends into this match. Like when the Big Show turned up, I was just sat there like, oh no. Nothing. I think I tweeted at the time, I was like, nothing says fuck it. Like we'll just chuck the Big Show in a match. But yeah, no, I agree. I think I feel bad for Orton because he has reinvented himself spectacularly in the last few weeks or months even. But I think it doesn't ultimately as well. I wasn't really for the WrestleMania main event thing of being Orton versus Edge for the championship. I like the idea of them having another match, but for the world title, I was like, or for the WWE championship, sorry, I was just sat there like, really? So in a way, I'm kind of glad they've steered away from that angle. I'm just a bit upset that they've kind of wasted Randy Orton being back on a hot streak. But I digress. Obviously, we go to the last match of the night, the Hell in a Cell I Quit match for the Universal Championship. As James has already alluded to, if Jey Uso loses, let's be honest, when Jey Uso loses, him and Jimmy Uso have to take orders from Reigns, referred to him as the Tribal Chief. So obviously, yeah, Roman Reigns is going to win this one. I'm excited for this match, though. I reckon it could be pretty, like, in terms of storytelling, this could be great.
Yeah, I think this will be a great match to watch. There's no point in us saying why we feel like Reigns is. Everyone in the world knows that Roman Reigns is going to win this match. I want to more elaborate on, because you had a good idea for the wild card. I've kind of lost track on whose time it was to do one, so we're going to go with your idea. I just wanted to kind of clarify more on it. So I feel as though suggestion for the wild card should be how many times Roman Reigns says, "Call me the Tribal Chief," or that he is the Tribal Chief. But I think it should be bell to bell.
Or head of the table as well. That was
or head of the table. And it has to be
table.
Reigns that says it, not the commentators, not Jey Uso or Jimmy Uso. We want to hear how many times Roman Reigns says that he is the Tribal Chief.
Or some kind of variation of it. This could be a lot. This could be. I think that it'll either be loads or they'll just like barely say it.
Well, I have got one question. If he says, "Call me the Tribal Chief," say I'm the head of the table, is that two? That counts as, even though it's in like the same breath.
I think that's two. Yeah, I think it's
okay,
two.
That's fine.
This could be a lot.
This could be quite a lot. Yeah. If the match is half an hour, they could easily say it 100 times.
How many times? As a ballpark figure, how many times do you think he said it in the last one? I'd say like comfortably over 20. Like
yeah, I'd
he said
say
it loads.
Was, yeah.
The thing is that in this one though, because it's an I Quit match, quite often they just go like, "Ask him, ref, ask him," or something like that. So I don't know. It could either be loads or he'll hardly say it. But it has to be Roman Reigns specifically saying it as well. It can't be anyone else.
Yeah. And it can be a mixture of say I'm the tribal chief, or that just declaring like I am the tribal chief. Like, as long as he's saying those two words.
Tribal chief or head of the table, yeah.
Or head of the table, yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be quite, because things are like quite often. I reckon he'll have him like, I can see it. You have him like a headlock or something, and he'll just be there like, "Say I'm the tribal chief. Say it. I'm the tribal chief. I'm the head of the table."
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like free right there. I can see him doing that a lot. I'm gonna, you know what? There's no real way you can predict this. You can't apply any logic to this, except he's just probably gonna say it a lot of times. So I'm gonna come out swinging and say it will be said 16 times.
Jesus, that is the exact number I had.
Really? 16?
I shit you not, I had 16.
Well, there you go. I said it first though. I put it out on the airwaves first.
I know. I was letting you go first as the challenger. So, but dear God, you could have picked any number, but I had 16. I've had that in my head since you messaged that maybe 2 days ago.
Yes,
dear God,
this is the moment. James's streak could be over.
Do I think
it'll
be more or less? I feel like, oh God, I just don't know. I'm going to go. Well, really, here I just need to do a more or less, don't I?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things if you pick 15 or 17, because basically if it's less than 16, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, 16 or less, or, yeah. Dear God. I'm going to go more.
It's going for more. Ooh. This match, if there are only 5 matches, this match could go on for a while. That is the one thing that does work in your favour.
And I can imagine, 100%. Like, if they get out of this cell, I feel like he might shout it at the commentators. I feel like he might shout it at Jimmy Uso, sorry. I feel like he might shout it at Paul Heyman. I think he will do a lot of declaring he is the tribal chief in this match. So I'm going to say more than 16 times.
So I'm going to say, though, obviously that's because James has locked in more than 16 times. So 16 or less, and it's me. More than 16, it's James. But I will say this, though. Do you think with this... Well, there's no match to talk about, but do you think with this whole setup now, where if Reigns wins and like the Usos become his sort of like lackeys and stuff, do you think this has to end with Reigns versus The Rock?
100%, yeah. I think he'll have to come back to try and free. The only thing that would be awkward is you'd imagine he has to come back to try and free the Usos, but I can't imagine The Rock winning that match. I think if he comes back, he's got to lose and put Reigns over. But equally, the issue is they're really banking on having crowds, because The Rock will not come back for an empty arena. So that will be interesting to see. But I mean, to be honest, they've only got the Amway Center now until Survivor Series. They extended to get it to Survivor Series. They could obviously extend again, I guess, but at some point, they've got to have a plan. Like, when are they going to get fans back in there, I guess? And maybe it will be after Survivor Series we start to see that. It would be a shame, especially in the road to WrestleMania. Like, the Royal Rumble without a crowd is going to be such a strange concept. And yeah, to have another WrestleMania in an empty arena would be really. It's just, it really misses its crowd. I know all sports miss crowds, but wrestling is really missing that crowd. The wrestlers don't have anything to feed off. They don't know if what they're doing is great or not. Like it's and I can't imagine someone like The Rock wanting to come back. If he comes back, he could have 100,000 people screaming his name. He's not going to want to come back to have 30 people from NXT banging on a perspex screen.
No, yeah, I agree. I feel the way they're booking this sort of has to go that way. And sure, I'm all for it. And even if Reigns wins, I think that would be, again, it's kind of like the good. I think the good thing will be is, do you remember when Reigns fought the Undertaker, and everyone was there like, if Reigns was a heel, this was the greatest thing you could have possibly done. If you just and then he came out and did the whole like, this is my yard now, and everyone was like, yeah, and then he resorted to being a face again. Like, I think this time, if he beats The Rock clean as a heel, that is like possibly the best thing with the character they could ever do. And like that could be the best way to cement Roman Reigns as like a. I mean, it's always going to be like a legend in the sort of wrestling history, but like to fans, that's the ultimate way to get him over. Like in Randy Orton's Legend Killer phase, it's like a similar thing. Like the best way to get him really over is if he beats The Rock clean as a heel. They could be great. But obviously, this is all speculation for the future.
Oh yeah, and I was thinking one thing you could almost do as well. I guess if you weren't gonna, I mean, I don't imagine they would pull the trigger on Jey Uso this hard, but this almost has like a classic, in a Royal Rumble match, Reigns ordering them to eliminate themselves. They defy him and eliminate him. The crowd go all for it, and you make a star in that moment in the same way Drew McIntyre was made because he eliminated Brock Lesnar. I feel like that pop would be big enough that you could almost build around then having, a Jey Uso as a main eventer, but not enough that he'd win a Royal Rumble and headline WrestleMania. So I think they really are banking on The Rock coming back, but I think there's a lot of things that are going to have to fall. And also on top of that, his schedule's got to allow it. You've got to get the insurance that allows it, because when he came back and fought Cena, he tore his something. I can't remember what it is he tore, but that halted the Hercules filming. So, there are issues around bringing him back anyway. But there weren't a lot of matches for us to.
There's always Goldberg. If not,
it's true.
Everyone knows.
But yeah, those are our predictions then for these 5 matches we have before us. Hell in a Cell is tonight, so obviously you'll have to listen to this just beforehand. And then feel free to get in touch with us with who you think is going to win yourselves. We are available on Twitter at UselessAgPod, and that's definitely worth following because we will be tweeting throughout the event. Henry will definitely be up for all of it. I will probably be up for all of it. But we'll see how that goes. I'm also on Twitter at Citadel James.
And you can find me at Henry Rogers 94.
And thank you very much for tuning in. Again, apologies for the dog snoring away at my feet as I'm recording this. He is quite loud. But subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell strangers. Go on our website. We'll have our fancy Hell in a Cell matches up there as well for everyone to read through. And there's some other great content there as well. So keep checking in with all things useless aggression.